On Wednesday, New York City Mayor Eric Adams and other lawmakers, including Representative Jerry Nadler, marked the 10-year anniversary of Superstorm Sandy. Adams recalled the devastation of the storm, saying, quote, "Sandy wasn't just a storm, it was a warning." He announced his plan to build up the disaster resiliency of New York City, detailing about $8.5 billion in proposed infrastructure projects. He also unveiled a new program called the Climate Strong Communities, which will play a role in New York's long-term climate strategy.
Thank you, and really want to thank you, Trevor, because sometimes in politics we look at the political aspects, but we ignore the human aspects of it. And his personal narrative of how the storm impacted his life is something we should all reflect on. And those stories we've heard over and over again during my time as a borough president, watching what took place along our coastal areas, just bring back so many memories of going out to Coney Island and watching just the total devastation of watching the bay reach the sea and just seeing the loss of homes and how it impacted us as a city. And we want to just thank all our partners. I think the deputy mayor is right. We are coming together and we're unified. No matter what political ideologies you may have, we are united around the resiliency of our city to protect us against the uncertainties of storms that are impacting us every day. So I want to thank all my partners who are here. The deputy mayor mentioned their names, but I just truly appreciate the partnership that they're showing. And also this administration, as well as previous administrations. Michael Bloomberg and Bill de Blasio, they dealt with the devastating, unprecedented storm that hit our shores. And one can look at it and do an analysis in a rear view, but the reality, no one knew what to expect. And everything was not done perfect, but they were dedicated. And I want to thank both of them, former mayors Bloomberg and former mayor Bill de Blasio, for what they have done and what we will continue to do. And we're going to work hard to do as they did and promote the recovery and resiliency of our city. And today we want to talk about a couple of things. One, we're going to talk about the problems we face as a coastal community in the era of climate change. Two, we're going to talk about the work we've done to make New York City more resilient. And we're going to talk about the work ahead. And finally, we're going to talk about the help we need. Because this isn't a problem that can be solved on just New York City's dime. It must be a problem that must be faced by the entire federal government as we look at the coastal cities. 10 years ago this week, New Yorkers saw what a storm supercharged by climate change can do to a city. Flooded subways, a week-long blackout downtown, riding downtown, seeing this city in darkness, both with lights off, and just the spirit of the people were devastated. Thousands of New Yorkers without homes, without water, without utilities, buildings and property damage, and most importantly, as the deputy mayor reflected on, 44 New Yorkers lost their lives. And we still feel that pain, and the family members are feeling the pain. Even 10 years later, the pain does not dissipate. It is as real each time we acknowledge this day. Sandy was not just a storm, it was a warning. It was letting us know what the future looks like. Storms like Sandy, they were once estimated by scientists to occur once every 100 years. That has changed. They're becoming stronger and more frequent due to our rapidly warming planet. We don't have another 100 years to prepare. We have to prepare now. Climate change is here, it's clear, and it is a present danger. And we're going to do everything we can to prepare our city and to protect New Yorkers. We know that another storm could hit New York City at any time, and it's something we must be ready for, and we must be ready now. And every day going forward, that preparation must continue to grow. That's why New York City has embarked on the single largest urban climate adaptation project in the country along our waterfront and just north of here. And to build on that, the Brooklyn Bridge, Montgomery Coastal Resiliency Project, which will exist right where we are standing. We'll be breaking ground on this in just a few moments, but this is how serious and how committed we are. Once this is in place, movable flood walls will protect the Two Bridges neighborhood of Manhattan when needed, while continuing to preserve views and access to the waterfront when they are not being utilized. We understand that we will not be imprisoned to the storm, but we must be prepared for the storm. We're also announcing a new initiative, Climate Strong Communities, a new citywide climate strategy that will boost resiliency efforts throughout the 5 boroughs, especially in high-need areas that historically face deeper impact as a result of climate change. Equity and environmental justice are essential to our climate strategy. For far too long, communities have been left behind based on their zip code and based on their economics. The Climate Strong Community Initiative will lead to model projects that protect these neighborhoods and can be replicated across the entire 5 boroughs. Kizzy will talk about these efforts in just a moment. These efforts represent just some of the work we are doing all over the city to protect New Yorkers from the next superstorm. Just yesterday, our Department of Parks announced they've completed 100 Sandy-related capital projects, from boardwalk renovation to the replacement of 10,000 trees lost in the storm, installing floodgates at Asa Levy Park, and launched flood nets, which now has over 30 flood sensors citywide. But even as we continue to rebuild and recover from Sandy, we're working to build up new defenses in this new era. I want to point out, we are creating an entirely new class of infrastructure to protect our city. These infrastructure projects, like the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project, we unveiled earlier this year, are complex, ambitious, and unparalleled in any other American city. Many of our other resiliency projects remain in various stages of completion. This kind of work is generational, and it involves significant long-term planning and needs regular and reliable resiliency funding. Every year, the federal government directs regular funding into items like highways and transit. We need the same for resiliency projects. It must be built into the capital plan for the national and federal government. A dedicated, reliable stream that the entire country can tap into. We need the federal government to help shore up these resources, because we have at least $8.5 billion in critical coastal protection projects we need to complete. It will cost more to bail out New York City than to protect it. Let's think in advance, let's act in advance, let's build in advance. For every $1 spent preparing for natural disasters, we save $6. We'll spend picking up the pieces afterwards. So I'll say it again. We need regular, reliable resiliency funding to bolster our defenses, prevent damage, and save lives and money. We also need the federal government to take other measures to ensure cities is better prepared. Projects should not be held up because of FEMA's funding caps or any other bureaucratic reason. We need to get out of the way of getting this work done immediately. That is why I'm also asking for our partners on the federal level to increase the maximum amount of funding allowed for projects under FEMA's Building Resiliency Infrastructure and Communities program. No one has been a better partner for us than Congressman Nadler, who joined us. We want to thank you, Congressman, for your partnership and your work in this area. The resiliency efforts work must continue and be in place when we need it. Hurricane Sandy damaged thousands of homes, as the numbers were indicated by the deputy mayor. We know the loss was so significant. We cannot afford to have another Sandy-type damage happen to this city. Our state partners can help as well by granting progressive design build authorization. We're working closely with our partners as always, and the significant leader in this area, and I guess that's why your name was mentioned twice. You know, Senator Leroy Comrie has been just forward thinking in this area, and we want to thank him. State law currently does not permit us to sign with contractors until the design of a project is complete. Progressive design bill would allow us to cut through the red tape and hire and work with contractors from the beginning, making bigger projects more faster and more cost efficient. Senator Comrie legislation will advance this concept. We need to get it passed, and we need to make sure he gets the support he needs to get this done. The administration, however, is not waiting to take action. We are working on all fronts to protect our city and prevent future tragedies. Just a few days ago, the administration celebrated the announcement of more than a dozen initial recommendations. A team of experts from various fields that make up our capital reform task force brainstormed for months. Led by Deputy Mayor Lorraine Grillo, First Deputy Mayor, we put together a plan of action and a list of recommendations. We came up with ways we can cut red tape, make progress, move faster, and ensure the process for large projects like these move forward in an expeditious fashion. We're fortunate New York City has been spared a direct hit from a coastal storm like Sandy. The damage and loss of life from Hurricane Ida just last year showed us just how damaged and dangerous these storms are. Climate change is real, and the impacts, they are also real. We need to stay focused and think ahead. We need help from every level of government, federal, state, and city. And we need it before the next coastal storm comes to our city. This is not the time for delay, not the time for debate. It's not the time for red tape or blue ribbon panels. It's time for New York City, New York State, and America to get stuff done to prevent the next devastation. Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is a collaborative process. We're the focal point of the nation, so it takes federal, state, and city working together to make resiliency reality. Next, I'd like to introduce Kizzy Charles Guzman, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, a New Yorker who has dedicated her life to ensuring that all New Yorkers stay safe in the face of our climate crisis.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Deputy Mayor. 10 years ago today, as you've heard, Hurricane Sandy really devastated our city. It really was a wake-up call for how vulnerable our city is to coastal storms, and a reminder that not all communities are impacted equally or have the ability to recover as quickly as others. In the years following Sandy, we that are gathered here today, our agency partners, our state and federal government partners, community groups, and the scientific community have made tremendous efforts to make sure that our city is safer and more prepared, not only for the next coastal storm, but for all the risks that our changing climate is bringing to our city. Projects like the one we're breaking ground on today, BMCR for short, are incredible feats of engineering. New York's neighborhood-scale coastal protection projects are an entirely new class of infrastructure and among the largest and most ambitious and technically complex coastal infrastructure projects in the entire world. And we're initiating them in a dense urban environment, and that is not easy, and it's not fast. BMCR will protect the vibrant and diverse Two Bridges neighborhood and includes vital play and recreation space that dramatically improves what we have now. Projects like this are a signature mission of this administration's resiliency work and build on the tireless effort of every city agency and every mayoral administration since Hurricane Sandy. They are the work of generations. But there are many tools in our toolbox to confront climate change, and we must use all of them. Climate resiliency is more than flood walls. We need to invest and plan projects that keep New Yorkers safe from all types of climate impacts. We need projects that protect people in the near term and that are tailored to meet community needs and community wants. Projects that focus on environmental quality today. This is why we are launching Climate Strong Communities. It is the next generation of adaptation planning for New York City. They're multi-hazard, they focus on environmental justice, and they're proactive instead of reactive. We know far more about planning for climate hazards in 2022 than we did in 2012. New York communities must not only be Sandy strong, they must be climate strong. Our city, yes, is vulnerable to storms like Sandy, but also to extreme heat, which kills far more people than storms do, and also extreme rainfall like we experienced during Hurricanes Ida, and chronic flooding during high tides as a result of sea level rise. Climate Strong Communities is considering all of those challenges and the unique ways in which they impact our communities. It focuses on areas that were not addressed by Sandy recovery funding and areas that face disproportionate impact as a result of climate change. These projects will be grounded in climate justice and understanding that the same communities that have been historically overburdened by social, economic, and health disparities are also the most vulnerable to a rapidly changing climate. When we take a one-size-fits-all approach to resiliency, we leave people out, and we leave out solutions that may not work for a particular neighborhood's risks and needs. This is why, as we design these projects, we will be thoughtfully engaging with communities. It won't be top-down. We commit to collaborate with them to find the solutions that they want to see and that will protect them. We will do this for the years ahead and for the months and the weeks and the days. Finally, again, Climate Strong Communities is proactive. The federal government is releasing billions of dollars in Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Inflation Reduction Act, yes. And Climate Strong Communities is specifically designed to unlock that money. We have to be ready when those rules come out. So when Hurricane Sandy roared through our city, causing this tragic loss of life and devastation of our homes, our hospitals, our neighborhoods, businesses, and infrastructure, we were forced to be reactive. With Climate Strong Communities, New Yorkers is about becoming proactive, taking our city into the future, making sure that future generations will be able to continue to call New York City our home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kizzy. As the mayor noted, we need federal formula dollars because resiliency work is infrastructure and it's reoccurring infrastructure. The need is not going away and it's getting more important every day. Kizzy noted what we can do as a city to ensure that we're poised to leverage all the competitive grant money that's out there by designing resiliency projects throughout the city beyond the Sandy footprint. And now I'd like to welcome Senator Comrie, who can describe the tools the state is able to provide the city so that we can get these projects up and running quickly, given what we know is an extremely complex construction environment, which is New York City. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
I'm pleased to be here this morning. I want to thank the mayor's office and his team. I'm honored. I serve as a state senator for the 14th Senate District in Queens. Again, I want to thank Mayor Eric Adams, Deputy Mayor for Operations Mayor Josie, New York City DEP Commissioner and Chief Climate Officer Rohit Agrawala, Executive Director of the Mayor's Office of Climate and Environmental Justice, Kizzy Charles Guzman. I'm kind of surprised I'm speaking ahead of Congressman Jerry Nadler because I normally follow protocol and respect. So excuse me, Congressman, because you bring the money and we have to spend it wisely. So, but I just want to say apologizing to my other colleagues in government, the council members, good morning to you also. And also I have to thank my former colleague and my brother from another mother, Jimmy Otto, who is here this morning. Thank you, Jimmy. Good to see you. Thank you for being part of this team also. It's not given enough knowledge that the mayor has a diverse team of people, not just Democrats, but people that care about the city, Republicans, independents, people that want to see the city get stuff done, as the mayor says. So I also want to thank Trevor Howland for Two Bridges resident, and I have to shout out my main activist in Queens, Barbara Brown, for the Eastern Queens Alliance, for the everyday work they do to keep pushing the bar higher for us as public officials to address climate issues. I won't They gave me a lot to say here, but I'll try not to be repetitive. We already know what the BMCR project is doing. We know that the city is doing a lot of new work, so I'm going to jump right to what I'm trying to do and what I was honored to do as a state legislator. The city is doing as much as it can to be back, but there's so much more that needs to be done by the state and federal government. One of the ways that I've been able to assist, I'm honored to be chair of the State Senate's Committee on Corporations, Authorities, and Commission. I was able to advance the first design build legislation back in 2019. I was able to pass the New York Public Works Investment Act, which allowed city agencies to use the first design build iteration, which emphasizes collaboration, efficiency, and risk reduction, which is a fancy way of saying that we can open and build libraries, fire stations, and all construction facilities sooner and with much lower costs. It has also been able to accelerate all projects. In fact, the state and the city used design build to replace the dilapidated Kosciuszko Bridge, which you know where that is, which saved over $873 million, and that project came in under budget and nearly 4 years ahead of schedule. And with design build, the city's already saved $1 billion in construction costs because of the efficiency of the design build project. Eventually, in making sure that we can have more money and use our money more progressively and be able to do additional projects, because we still have major flooding in Southeast Queens, throughout Queens, as you know, from the last 2 hurricanes, and any type of heavy water now, you see flooding in all around the city. We are pushing a new legislation which is called Progressive Design Bill, which is passed and which will be passed, not if, will be passed next year and signed into law. We'll have a more accelerated project completion tool in our toolbox. Progressive Design Bill has significant advantages that will make key city projects, which are critically needed for our resiliency goals, more achievable. A few key points are reduced change orders within the agreed scope of work after the contract is executed, the ability to expedite parts of the project due to having one entity working for and making decisions, creating higher quality outcomes with reduced costs due to modes of efficiency. These are just a few of the advantages that would make Progressive Design Build a boon to our city and state as we prepare and prevent places like Staten Island, Lower Manhattan, Southeast Queens, and the Rockaways from facing the irrevocable havoc that these hurricanes have been heaping upon our city. It's been a tough 2 years for our city and our state as we recover from multiple crises, and I am greatly appreciative of the partnership and the willings of the Adams administration to champion my bill, which is Senate Bill 9314A for you detail geeks. You can take a look at it, and the Assembly version sponsored by Assemblyman Ed Braunstein, Assembly Bill number 10467. I hope to work with all of you and to meet with all of the leaders and people around the state, not just so that we can gain more insight on how to keep New York City moving forward as we take on the challenge of climate change together. I want to thank again the mayor. I want to remind people that, as we are commemorating the issues of Sandy and going to other events around Sandy and the personal issues that happened, Sandy was devastating for my communities. My home was without power. My office had no power. We had to work remotely for weeks. I had to work in different places that were open in and around. Sandy impacted us greatly. This Progressive Design Bill will save the city literally billions of dollars, creating more opportunity to use our federal dollars wisely that we will be getting, and creating the opportunity to do at least four more formal additional projects that are surely needed to make sure that we can protect our city. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Senator Comrie. And now we will pass the mic over to Congressman Nadler. But we did want to set the stage, Congressman, that we are prepared for the money that I'm sure the federal government will unlock. So you've heard our plans, and now we'd love to hear how we can get support.
Well, thank you very much. There is no threat more existential to the future of New York City or the world than that posed by the climate crisis. Superstorm Sandy showed that 10 years ago here in New York City. The devastation and destruction by Hurricane Ian showed that on the west coast of Florida a few weeks ago, and Hurricanes Fiona and Maria showed how the threat of climate change is affecting Puerto Rico. And the lesson that we must all learn is that we must act and make our city more resilient to handle not just hurricanes, but rising sea levels too. As Dean of the New York Congressional Delegation, I have advocated and fought for recovery aid for New York City. I'm proud that Congress allocated $50 billion after Superstorm Sandy, with about $17 billion coming directly to New York City. As I mentioned, I've long advocated for desperately needed resiliency measures to be implemented after Superstorm Sandy. And today's announcement on the 10th anniversary of that devastating storm is an important step in protecting New York City from future storms. As we enter the construction, design, and engineering phase of many of these projects, I look forward to working with our federal, city, and state partners to make our waterfront resilient and continuing to engage in robust dialogue with community members to make sure their needs are met. And finally, I want to thank Mayor Adams and his administration for continuing this important work and making these projects a priority. And I can only say I will continue to do everything in my power to see that the funding necessary is there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Congressmember Nadler, and we truly appreciate your advocacy. We will now turn over to on-topic question and answers.
Hi, good morning,
Katie,
Mayor Adams.
how are you?
Good, thanks. I just have some questions. It's a two-part question on these walls or dams. Sorry, I don't have the official title. The first is, why wouldn't this be implemented throughout this side of the coast? Especially, I know the ESCR project. I know part of that is federal money as well. It was very controversial, the destruction of the park because of it. Why was this ruled out as an option? And secondly, what are the weather conditions that would trigger this wall going up, and can it be done easily, or is there a certain company that can do it?
Okay. You, man.
Good morning. My name is Tom Foley, Commissioner with the Department of Design and Commission. We started north of here at Eastside Coastal Resiliency in order to protect 110,000 residents, 28,000 of which are in public housing. We then proceeding both north from a design standpoint, but also here at BMCR. It's a $350 million project, federally funded, and it's also protecting over 45,000 residents. We're installing over 100 flip-up gates. Just north of us here is East River Park, obviously. From a geographical standpoint, we have a lot of space. We're raising the park 9 feet. Here, we're using gates, so we're adapting to, obviously, to the environment and to the landscape.
What conditions?
And then what would trigger this?
Trigger it.
Can it all be done internal? Can it be done by DEC, or is there like a third party that would be required to put those?
So as far as from an emergency response is going to be handled both with emergency response with Zach and his team, and also Commissioner Rodriguez and DOT. So there's set team that's going to be responding basically 72 hours out in the event of a storm event. 93 of the gates that are here are hydraulically powered. Literally press a button and the gate will come up within basically 1 or 2 minutes. The other 18 gates are manual. One is with a generator, and the mayor had closed that gate about 2 months ago in record time, both the mayor and the first deputy mayor, in about 20 minutes. So each one's different, but in this area, it's going to be 72 hours out that it's going to be worked on by a city team.
Question on the funding: how much of the $50 billion allocated post-Sandy still exists, and if it doesn't, what's the funding mechanism to pay for this? And secondly, I've seen 2035 as the completion date to make this area fully flood protected. If 2035 is the actual date, is 23 years after Sandy really responding to the crisis in an urgent way?
Yeah. Okay. First, we'll get the funding. If you have that, Tom. Okay, we'll get that funding information. But I noticed you were a little late. I know it's your birthday, so you may have been hanging out late. If you're going to hang out with the boys, you got to get up with the men. You know the rule. You know the rule. So happy birthday to you. You know, these are complex, unprecedented projects. And when you're building something of this magnitude, I know 72% of the money has been spent. I think 27% is still remaining. I think Brad gave a good report. We're going to look at some of those recommendations. But these projects have never been built before. And so we don't want to move at a rapid pace just to say, okay, we spent the money. No, we have to get it right. We have to get it right. What we're doing here is going to set the course for other municipalities with coastal cities. And so, you know, there's always a desire to say we're going to just spend all the money that was allocated. The previous administrations, they did the right thing by getting it right. We're going to get it right. And that 27% that's remaining, those projects have been identified, but it's about making sure these projects are done correctly.
Good morning, Mr.
How are you
Mayor.
doing?
Okay, how are you?
Good.
How tall are these walls, and where are they when they're not in use? Like, do they come up out of the water? Do they come up out of the ground?
So yes, the walls will be 9 feet high. They'll be actually recessed, so 99% of the time they will provide the views and the access to the residents and to the community. And just to go back as far as the question from the birthday boy, the project will be complete by 2026, both here and also at Eastside Coastal Resiliency. So $2 billion worth of work. We're currently on budget and on schedule.
Who presses the button to make them go up?
Well, I would say the mayor. I don't want to put him on the spot, but by a dedicated city team that's going to be adapting that's already collected and going through exercises as far as the from a resiliency standpoint, storm events.
Hi, Mayor. How are you?
What's up, Steve?
Good to see you. You mentioned in your remarks that this is not a time for debate. I'm sure that council members behind you can tell you that these are often very contentious projects. How do you balance the need for community buy-in with the urgency that climate change demands?
I know Councilman Rivera and I, we were at the Coastal Gate together. She's from the previous administration. She served previously. Having someone with the insight that she brings, understanding that a lot of her district is around coastal areas, and I think that experience is going to help. Good, healthy dialogue, we believe, is important. But we should not get in the way of something that we all agree that we need to protect our coastal areas. And when you look behind us from Julie Menon and others, we have really received some good support that we are in alignment on making sure we get this right. And we all understand the urgency of this moment.
Hey, Mr. Mayor.
God, man.
How's it going?
How are you?
I'm all right.
Those two beautiful children, they got their looks from their mom.
I told her that. She liked that. She liked that report. Landers report, on the resiliency efforts, it noted that the percentage of funding that's allocated that hasn't been spent, on East Side Coastal Resiliency, only 13.3% has been spent according to him. The raised shoreline's only 0.3%. So, you talked about cutting red tape, and Senator Comrie talked about design build. Can you offer some more specifics as far as like how those things and other measures you might have in mind are going to accelerate the process? What red tape do you think needs to be cut, and how much time do you expect like design build might shave off things?
Well, Leroy, you may want to talk about design build, but part of we want to be clear that, and Leroy can go into the importance of his bill, but what we need to wrap our heads around is the complexity of these projects. We're not talking about just building a highway or just building a building or just building a wall. We're going into unknown territory of building projects of this level of complexity. And so even without design build, it's a difficult challenge to do. And design build is going to take away some of the historical bureaucracy that gets in the way and let us work directly with the contractor. But Leroy, this is your bill.
I can also speak quickly to the pace of spending. These are complex design projects, so design does occupy a large portion of the time period to get to a final built product, but it's actually the cheapest part. The heaviest spend part is at the end with construction. So as we get into construction, the pace of spending accelerates tremendously. Design is the most complex, but it's where the least amount of money is spent. If you look at something like progressive design build, you can see how that can cut that timeline down. Progressive design build says the contractor and the owner, which is the city, rip up the street together, look in there, and decide what the scope is together. And that is something that's not done. It's now currently being used by Battery Park City for them to build their resiliency wall, and it's the kind of tool that would make building our resiliency walls and all of our coastal resiliency much quicker, because we could combine that scoping and design, collapse it into one by both being able to see, because Lord knows what's underneath our streets when we rip them up. It's spaghetti. So we need to be able to do that with information as we scope out these projects. And I want to turn it over to Senator Comrie, who can speak to the efficiency and savings of progressive design build.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. She pretty much laid out the beauty of design build and progressive design build is it allows all the parties to be together and unified before they come up with a final bid on the project. And that the project's already been scoped, it's been thoroughly looked at, because as the Deputy Mayor said, they're going to open up the streets or open up whatever the areas are and do a full scoping out of the project before we have to do pre-bids from construction people, pre-bids from architectural people. And as I said with the Kosciuszko Bridge, that one project saved over $300 million between the original estimates and with the new design build features that were in it. The city has already saved over $1.5 billion using design build projects since 2019. So that's $1.5 billion that could go to new projects that are down the list to be done that wouldn't have been done. It's a better use of federal dollars. It's a better use of dollars altogether for projects that are critical. So to make it simple, design build creates the opportunity to simplify the process, to not to have to do multiple pre-bidding, to do one bid that is worked on in conjunction with the city. And then once that, I'm not saying the technical terms right because there's a pre-bid word, the EQA, I forget what there's a pre-scoping thing that goes out. PQL. So it instead of having a PQL that is not really looked at exactly what the scopes are, what the costs are going to be, people, the architects, the contractors, the prime developers, and making sure these projects are done are working in one accord. And it saves a lot of money, it saves a lot of time, it cuts down on the repetitiveness, and it really cuts down on the scope changes that happen, because a lot of times you open up these streets or you go underground and you find that what was there was not properly laid out in the beginning, or it wasn't mapped out properly, and you see a whole, the Second Avenue the railroad project was a mess because they were not able to do that. And when they went in there and the contractors went in there, they found it was a whole different structural layout than what they bid on. So it required changes and just multiple changes, and that's one reason why the Second Avenue project took so long. Thank you.
Absolutely. So the city what we're doing is committing to planning. And our position is that resiliency is the thing that we now have to do across every single city agency all of the time. So all of the capital dollars, all of the capital budgets for every agency, the question is, how do they help advance the resiliency of New Yorkers, right? So it's not any one agency's job. And so when we're talking about climate strong communities, it's about really identifying the cities into its typologies. And that's a wonky way of saying that the thing that is protective of a coastal community might not be at all the right solution for an inland community, one that experiences tidal flooding, for example, or one that experiences extreme heat. And so the challenges are different community by community, and what we need to do is have projects in the pipeline at the design stage. You just heard the Deputy Mayor say that design process is what takes a very long long time. We want to do it with communities rather than prescribe where we're putting our new investments, right? So we want to have projects in a pipeline so that when the state funding opens up, pretend from the Bond Act that is up for voters this election cycle, right, in the back of your ballot. When that opens up, when the federal funding opens up, we have projects ready to go, whether it is planting trees in a targeted manner, expanding our sewer system, or expanding our number of bioswales in communities that experience stormwater issues, or restoring our wetlands, right? Which again, they are the first line of protection for those fence line communities. So everything related to our green infrastructure, our natural infrastructure systems, it's supposed to complement and supplement the gray infrastructure that you're seeing around here. A wall is not appropriate everywhere. It also takes a long time. We want to make sure that we have short-term, medium-term, protective approaches for every community so that they're able to not only enjoy the environmental quality of life they deserve today, but also be safer from the hazards that are coming their way.
Is there like a time you want to identify those projects?
We have. So we are launching, and what we've done, we've released Adapt NY today. It's on our website. What it does is it helps to map the city according to its climate risk. It is, again, a multi-hazard approach to thinking about climate risk, not just coastal storms. And we're able to see the city's typologies, the flats, the fence line, right, the heights, and you can see the different challenges. So what we're trying to do is identify the projects that we have already in the capital process and try to think about that delta. How do we make these things more resilient, right? And so those communities, as the funding trickles on, we will continue that planning process with communities to ensure that we're funding that delta, right? We don't want to build a greenway. We want an elevated greenway where it makes sense. That kind of thinking. Resilience is in everything that we must do for the future.
Lee, how are you?
The wall that's going to go here, how long will that stretch? And I'm by no means a marine expert, but water's going to go somewhere. So while you may solve the problem here, are you then going to see Dumbo flooded or Down Island? It's got to go somewhere, right?
Yes. You get a question? It's the science here.
A little science?
Yes, yes.
All right, let me put my science. Yes, so I think the first question was as far as the length. It's actually going from Montgomery, which is north of here, which is the southern end of East Side Coastal Resiliency, Project Area 1, and then it's going towards Brooklyn Bridge, so that's why it's called BMCR, 0.6 miles. The total between this and the other is basically almost 3 miles of protection, and it is everything is designed. Amazing in-house design team here that's present. Everything is then compartmentalized as far as it's each segment has the flood protections, but then obviously in its entirety it will be 2026, and that is almost 3 miles of flood protection.
So the question was, yeah, so after, I got you. So when it's built, it's going to prevent water from coming in. Where's that water going to be displaced to other areas? That's the question. It's going to be displaced.
Well, that just, I mean, you're also working within the existing elevations that are in so there's also work that's happening south of here, as the Deputy Mayor had said, in Battery Park City Authority. There'll also be future resiliency projects in Lower Manhattan. We're also in the designs of over at Red Hook, which is a very low-lying area in Brooklyn. So the city is looking at all the work within the 5 boroughs, not only the resiliency, but also green infrastructure and other things that Kizzy had mentioned.
Two quick ones. And the first may be for you, I'm not sure. What contingency plans are in place in case the hydraulic gates, for whatever reason, heaven forbid, don't go up?
You're saying if the water goes over the 9 feet?
That's actually worthwhile.
I would say run. I mean, you know, right.
Ideally, they work perfectly.
Right.
72
So
hours.
you're saying if the gate doesn't open, okay.
It'll be manual.
Yeah. So it's due. If it's, we can push the button, but if that doesn't operate, you and I are gonna have to do the manual role of getting it open. So it's manual and hydraulic. Okay.
You also mentioned Battery Park City. The residents at near Wagner Park have been asking the state to put a pause on it because
I'm sorry, what, the last part, the what?
Just similar to the Wagner Park issues and Battery Park, say, what efforts are just being made to ensure that residents for this property on this side?
And it's, you know, there will be slight concerns that are raised by residents. You know, I love the waterfront also. There's going to be some give and take here. And as Kizzy stated, it's about engaging communities. And it's about sharing, you know, so we're not building a wall of 9 feet that's going to remain in place all the time. It is recessed until it is needed. And I think everyday New Yorkers understand the goal is to be proactive and be prepared and make sure that we both continue our waterfront views, continue the beauty of our parks, but also to deal with that destruction that we witness close down our parks, close down our communities, it close down our cities, and it costs us billions of dollars. So there's a give and take here, and many of us are willing to live up to that give and take. Why don't we do a few off topics before I bounce, you know? Look, as soon as I say off topic, you see them? Okay, thank you all. We'll do the groundbreaking. How are you?
How are you?
Good.
About crime. This morning, again, another stabbing on the 4 train. I just took the subway to get here from the Upper East Side. No cops on the platform. Got here at East Broadway. No cops. 2 mentally ill people were acting erratic. I mean, what's going on? You did talk about your plan on Sunday, putting more officers on the platforms. Is that sustainable? And I mean, what do you tell New Yorkers who are saying, again?
You mentioned the stabbing. I was briefed this morning. It was at, I think, the Brooklyn Bridge or Chambers Street Station. Horrific incident, an apprehension. It appears to have started from a dispute, and we can continue to zero down. But I can also tell you that 3.5 million people are going to use that system today and won't have any encounters. We're going to deal with those crimes that take place, and we're going to continue to go after those 6 felony crimes a day that we're witnessing. But I know that 3.5 million people use our system every day without any encounters. That's the combination. Those type of incidents are impacting people feeling unsafe. I was on the system throughout this entire last few days since the announcement. I saw the police officers, I saw K9, I saw the trains making announcements when they were at precinct, at district offices. I saw them making announcements when police officers got on the train. I saw our mental health professionals doing their job. I walked through the system to see where are the cops. They're there. Are they at every station in the city every day? No, we have the most complex transit system probably on the globe. But we're strategically placing those officers during the ridership times, during where we see the crimes are taking place. We're properly deploying, and I see a complete all hands on deck. This morning I was briefed on those mental health professionals that are part of the operation. This was a terrible incident, and the police did their job of making the apprehension. And that innocent person that was there, that was, from my understanding, trying to stop the dispute, I'm going to reach out to him. But clearly, we're going to zero crimes on our subway system. That is our fight that we're pushing for. But I want to be clear on this. The last time we had a passenger count that we can truly analyze was 2019. Index crimes in the subway system right now, this year, 2022, are lower than 2019, 2018, 2017, in the last 10 years. The index crimes right now are lower than what it was when we were having those train rides. So we are going to continue to have those 1,000 new cops, 750,000 station inspections, 5,000 officers arrests that were made, 19,000 injections. Those officers are working. They're doing their job, and we're going to continue to the next level of dealing with issues like this.
Keep them on for a long time with the sustained
Yes.
Mr. Mayor, the first and only gubernatorial debate was last night. Did you watch, and what do you think of the governor's performance, if you did?
No, I didn't. I was at Gracie Mansion looking at the having my Diwali celebration. So important to the communities that I was there. But I don't need to watch the debate. I've been watching this entire campaign. And Kathy Hochul has been a real partner. She stood with me on January 6th as we dealt with subway crime. She stood with me and putting in place the plan to remove over 5,000 guns off our street. I think that the congressman had a good opportunity to show how forceful he was on guns by signing a gun bill. That was important to New York. Kathy Hochul is a partner. She's the best person for as a governor in the state, and I think New Yorkers are happy to see the partnership that we have developed, and we're working together on these important issues.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
How are you doing?
Good.
Great.
So you've expressed a lot of support for the Biden administration's decompression policies at the border, which has definitely slowed the flow of migrants to New York. But they also rely on the expansion of a Trump-era immigration policy called Title 42, which just denies asylum to Venezuelans fleeing poverty and violence. Do you support that reliance on Title 42?
I think the conversation on how we have a national immigration policy is going to take place with the senators, Congress, and the White House. It's not going to take place with the mayors. My job is to deal with the influx that we experienced. Two weeks ago, I clearly laid out to New Yorkers what we were dealing with, what we did in response, what we are doing now, and what we needed from the White House. The White House heard us. We needed a decompression strategy. They put it in place. We went from 8, 9, 10 buses a day. I think the governor of the mayor of El Paso called and said he's not sending any more buses because of that strategy. We received, I think, one bus yesterday. Clearly, the decompression strategy is helping New York City, Washington, and Chicago. We were receiving the brunt of those buses in the northern part of the country, and I believe figuring out a real national policy on immigration needs to be done. We cannot allow people to come into the country with proper vetting. We need to make sure that we are using the right methods to solve this problem at the source. And then those who come here, I believe the 2,400 would be allowed at a period of time. They should have sponsors. People should come to locales throughout the country where they have sponsors that could also support them navigating the system. So there's some broken parts of our policy. People can't work for 6 months, not doing the right dissemination of those who are coming to our country. We have to fix that, and national government must do that. How are you, Juliet?
All right.
Good.
Thank you. So my question, is the city seeing a rise in flu, COVID, and RSV cases, and is there concern going into the winter months?
Yeah, homes out loud. Now this is the train go by. Train. Yeah, you said a rise in COVID?
Is the city seeing a rise in flu, COVID, and RSV cases? And is there a concern, going into the colder months that there are going to be a lot more cases and hospitals are going to be busy?
Was on the phone this morning with our medical team. Yes, we're seeing an uptick. We want to continue to encourage people to get vaccinated. The booster is crucial. We want to continue the new booster that's out. As Dr. Fasano always says, it's almost like the iPhone when you have to upgrade new technology to fight the viruses that hit our phones. We have to fight the viruses that are hitting our bodies, and these new boosters are able to adjust to that. We're not seeing any real threat based on hospitalizations and death. We believe our healthcare infrastructure system, we're in a good place. We have it under control. And so there's no real alarms that we're seeing now. But we want to continue to encourage boosters, vaccines. That's the key.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Back to the migrant crisis. Are you able to give us some updated numbers when it comes to how many migrants have gone through the Randall Island Relief Center? What's the average amount of time that they've spent there? Also, I hear reports that some of the buses that are still coming from Texas are getting ticketed at the Port Authority. Do you have a comment?
One, we don't give numbers on, we protect the rights of people, that are going into our shelters and our 2 HERCs and our 55 emergency shelters that we open. We don't give those numbers, but we continue to manage. No child slept on the streets of the city of New York because of how we responded and our teamwork that we put together. We only heard 1 bus came yesterday. And we're going to continue to do the same things that we were doing. And it's clear the decompression strategy has helped us a great deal. And we're going to continue to advocate, make sure we get the resources we need for those who are here, 21,400 that are here that we need to make sure we get the resources for. But we have witnessed a steady decrease in the number of buses.
Quick one. Why do you think the polling in the Hochul-Zeldin race is so close? We had January 6th insurrection. Zeldin's been connected to that. Why is the polling so close in New York State?
I'm not sure if the polling is right. I remember that there was this guy in my race that was up 13 points. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how accurate the polling is. We say this all the time. The only poll that counts is on election day, and I believe New Yorkers are hearing and they're seeing a clear difference in Governor Hochul. Governor Hochul took over the helms of a ship during turbulent waters. Her steady hand has been clear. The danger of being successful is that no one remembers the success. You don't see headlines of the good things. You only see headlines of the bad things. The reality is this governor has navigated us through COVID, through monkeypox, through polio, through what she's doing around crime, through the economy. You look at the list. She has navigated us and created a partnership that all New Yorkers are saying. When I'm on the subway, people are saying, I like the way you and the governor are working together. This is a real win for the city. And I am looking forward to walking into on election day and writing in the dash now for Kathy Hochul. Thank you.
Everybody get a